Hey everyone, it's Thea Monyee. It's Valentine's Day, and it's time for today's Truth Talks. Sex with my ex, good idea or bad idea? Now, as always, I just want to remind you that this is just a simple third-party opinion based on my experience as a marriage and family therapist, as a mom, as a friend, as a human being, as an artist, but it in no way replaces your own judgment or intuition, your family, your belief system, your friends, your medical professionals, your mental health professional, etc., etc., etc. This is just an objective third-party opinion based on people who write in for advice. So I try to give them the best that I got. So here we go. Today's Truth Talk. Sex with my ex, good idea or bad idea? I know some of y'all was probably thinking about this today, Valentine's Day. Might call them. We'll see how you feel about that after we read this letter. As always, the name is changed to protect confidentiality, but the story is real. So we're talking about to Rose today. Rose is a 37-year-old divorcee with 3 kids in high school and middle school. She writes, my ex-husband and I have been divorced for 3 years, but about a year ago, we started having sex again. I freaked out at first because I thought he would think that we were getting back together. But it actually worked out well for the first few months. We hid it from the kids, but then I've noticed that they suggest that we are still seeing one another. In fact, recently they talk more and more about us getting back together. I didn't want that until recently when I found out that he is dating. I was so angry and hurt, but I was also embarrassed that I fell for him again. I'm so confused and I feel embarrassed that I made a mess of things again. Please help. Rose. Well, for starters, Rose, I think you are judging yourself pretty harshly, right? Let's start with taking just a deep breath and remembering that we are human beings and we all have needs and that we act on that need to have that need filled. So there's no point in judging yourself. It's only going to further exacerbate the problem and make it more difficult for you to get clear on what you're really feeling, right? So let's do that right now. Let's get clear. So, divorced for 3 years. We're going to assume there were good reasons for this divorce, for this separation. And a year ago, you decide you're going to start having sex again. Now, the thing you have to really be honest about, Rose, is what led you to make that decision. If this was somebody that you separated from 3 years ago, and I'm sure you had good reason, and I'm sure he had good reason, then what do you feel changed 2 years later? Or did you? Was it just that you had a need that needed to be filled? And if so, you need to be really honest about that. And the reason it's important is because later on in the letter you say that you fell for him again. But we're not even sure if that's where you are now, right? We're not sure if you actually fell for him again or if you just needed something again. And like I said, either way, that's okay. We just need to know what's motivating our decisions and actions. There's no good or bad. There's just the decision to make a certain action, and we need to know what's leading us that way, right? So first thing I would say is examine and explore very honestly, Rose, why you got back into that relationship in the first place. You could say you got back into it for sex, right? But if that was true, then we wouldn't be in this sort of confusing state of, do I love him? Do I want to be with him? And it also wouldn't have taken another person being in the picture, meaning him dating, for you to be aware that you had those feelings, right? So again, let's take a deep breath, because we're just going to be honest with ourselves. And we're going to say that there's a strong possibility that you're not back in love with the person, but there is something that you needed that you were able to get from this new arrangement. What was that thing? Now, broadly speaking, when we talk about sex with exes, we're looking at what? Comfort, familiarity, safety. Now, these are some of the things women love about a sexual partner, is feeling safe and feeling comfortable, not having to expose your body or yourself to a new person. These are all reasons to stay with somebody. At least these are reasons that we give ourselves, right? But if we say that, then we're also saying that we are staying out of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of possible rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of not finding someone. And we don't want to base any decision, relationship or otherwise, on fear. You have nothing to be afraid of, Rose. I mean, you sound like you are a good mother, an aware person. You just have needs, and we all do. So let's examine what are some other ways that you can fill those needs, right? I think personally the first thing would be to be really clear about the fact that it is scary to date new people. It is scary to start all over again. It is scary to put your heart back out there again. It is scary to trust again, especially when you've been with someone long enough to have children in high school and middle school. I don't think anyone in your position would not feel a little bit afraid about that. And that's okay. It's all okay. But we want to make sure we're honest about that fear so that we don't let that fear move us to bring the past into our present. We've talked about this a little bit before, and bringing the past into the present creates a lot of confusion, and it also dictates that your future will be very similar to your past, and clearly that's not what you wanted, right? It also makes it very confusing for our kids. Kids want their parents together no matter what. I mean, it could be the worst circumstances, and typically kids are going to cheerlead for their biological parents. But we want to be really clear for them too, not just in what's going on with mommy and daddy, but also in what to expect from a loving and healthy relationship, right? We want to model that for them. So as we make these decisions, we do have to be aware of what they're watching and how they're seeing it. When it comes to the kids, what I recommend, be honest. Humanize yourself. You are a human being. You're not just their mother. Express to them, not in graphic detail, because no kid wants to hear about their parents' sex life, but you want to be honest with them and say, I was scared, or I was lonely, or I missed your father, or whatever the case may be. You want to be honest about that so that they can see you have a human moment and then watch and learn from you getting through it. Sex with exes is not always the worst idea, but the problem with it is it brings the past into the present, like we've said. And unless there's been significant changes to the dynamic itself and a discussion about that and an agreement about that and some clarity about that, you're most likely going to find yourself back in the same situation. So if you are going to have sex with an ex, I recommend that you watch Truth Talks 1 on the verbal contract and the verbal agreement. Make sure that your boundaries are clear, that you're both expecting the same things, that you're honest and upfront about what your roles are and responsibilities, if any, to that role. But overall, I would say bringing the past into the present is not ever a great idea. But neither is acting out of fear. There is nothing for you to be afraid of, Rose. You are perfect, whole, and complete, and you will attract that from someone else. And if he's moving on, that could be a good thing. If you weren't right for each other, then he's possibly out there exploring what is right for him, and you should be doing the same. You deserve the same, and your kids deserve to see two parents who are happy and able to find love again and trust again. These are all good things. So be honest about your feelings, why you made the decisions you made, what needs are you lacking, and how can you meet those needs. There's a book called The Dance of Intimacy that I recommend. It helps you to get really clear on which space we're operating from, what needs and what fears, or when we are genuinely operating from a space of love. So I hope this helps. And some of you may still go out today on this Valentine's Day and have sex with your ex. If you do, make sure that you guys are in agreement about that verbal contract and those boundaries. And if you don't, then I suggest you treat yourself and get really clear about what you deserve and who you are. Thanks a lot for tuning in to Truth Talks, and I'll see you next week.